Hi and welcome to the final episode 7 of the J Morton podcast. Incredibly, this is the last of our 7 episodes. I hope you've enjoyed them as much as I've enjoyed speaking to the guests. But we're not finished. This is the final episode and the subject is resilience. And we're joined by a very special guest, Kenton Cool. Kenton is a British mountaineer and mountain guide, and he is known mostly for summiting Everest 15 times, and he's going to try it again next year to get 16 summits of Everest. So I hope you enjoy this conversation. But firstly, let us throw a big thank you out to our sponsors, Harley-Davidson, for helping make this podcast happen. It's a brand I love, but also, in my opinion, one of the most reliable and resilient brands out there. From selling 20,000 motorcycles to the military during World War I, and introducing graphic designs to stimulate low sales after the Great Depression, to training military mechanics during World War II, and earning 4 Army Navy awards in wartime production. I didn't even know that. For a brand with such a huge heritage, they've managed to continually innovate to remain relevant and to maintain their position as industry leaders. You can check out all their latest lineup at your local dealer, and you can find out where that is at hd.com. So here's the final episode. Kenton Cool.
Whereabouts are you?
Hang on. Gloucestershire in the Cotswolds.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so between Oxford and Cirencester.
Yeah. You had a busy morning, or has it been?
Running children to school, trying to get my head round. We're trying to launch a new business at the moment. We're trying to get my head around the finances, which don't stack up.
Yeah.
And yeah, trying to pivot. I'm meant to be going down to Antarctica in January via Cape Town. And of course, Boris has done a great job of putting that onto the red list. And it's only an 8-day trip. So this is for some clients. It's only an 8-day trip, and then they've got to do a 10-day quarantine. How does that work? And can we go from Chile, which is actually only 50k further than where we want to go, but can we logistically get the plane there? And so trying to sort all that shenanigans there.
So what's the trip? Are you flying via South Africa and then flying into Antarctic to do?
Exactly that. So we got an unclimbed peak. So it's quite a high end trip. We've got an unclimbed peak it's only like this. It's not a super technical one, but it's unclimbed, so it's pretty cool for the clients.
Yeah.
And then it's a bump down to the pole in the DC3. They've got a DC3 being converted to a Basilic.
What's a DT3? Is that the kind of twin prop?
Exactly, the old transport plane that the Americans developed towards
the big
end of
silver
the Second
thing,
World War.
Isn't it?
Yeah, often.
Yeah,
often. There's still quite a few flying anyway. Some of those have been converted with turboprops, and that's what they use down there with skis. So, yeah, we're not skiing to the pole or anything like that. We're doing it in locks. We're flying down there. Huge environmental footprint. I realise. Put my hands up for that one. But I've never been there. I'm quite excited about going.
Yeah, no, it sounds awesome. I'd love to visit either of the poles, to be honest.
I like ones.
Yeah, it just seems to be one of those super expensive kind of. It's when you look at the cost of doing it, you're like, right, what else could I do with the cost, the money that I put to that trip? What else could I do with it that I'd equally get just as much satisfaction from?
No, yeah, absolutely. It's bang for your buck. Yeah, and people often talk about how to get into mountaineering or how to get into climbing, and should I go to the Himalayas? Should I go to the greater ranges? Well, in reality, if you're talking bang for your buck, go to the European Alps.
Yeah.
And in that sort of week or 2 week, say you go to Himalayas, it's going to be realistically 3 to 4 weeks, depending on what you're doing, and it's going to cost you X $1,000. Where if you put that money to go into Chamonix or Saspé or even Zermatt, the amount of climbing you're going to get going, the amount of sort of time on the ground in crampons on the mountain compared with the Himalayas, in terms of bang for your buck, you can't beat it.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, you could say Scotland is quite more accessible, but I mean,
it's hard work. You got to
It's
if you
not
were
as, it's
skiing,
not
you'd
as
say you've got to earn
glamorous.
your turns. Scotland is
Versus the Alps.
fabulous. Scotland's got they're little hills, but it sounds like you're speaking from experience, Jay. Little hills, but they pack a punch.
Yeah, for sure.
You're going from sea level, maritime weather system changes super quickly. You know, it could be bright sunshine in the car park. Could be sleet and howling gales by halfway up. Could be snow and clear on the tops. It could be torrential rain on the way down. Short days in winter. Navigation's got to be spot on.
Yeah,
They're hard. You cut your teeth in Scotland. Take that experience anywhere.
Yeah, it's one of the only places where you get the whole 4 weather systems in one day, and it could go, like you said, right, it goes from one extreme to the other, and you could get caught in a snowdrift, or you could be going up in the rain and then coming back down in complete snow. Yeah, I do enjoy Scotland though. It kind of separates the
men from the boys, if we're allowed to say that. You know, the women from the girls, the ladies from the whatever. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you sometimes pinch yourself? One minute you're picking the kids up from school, and the next minute you fly out to Antarctica?
Yeah, I mean, it is a careful balance. It's certainly not a balance that I have right. In so much that we all talk about work-life balance, and I think anybody that says that they've got it nailed is either somewhat deluded or they're lying to us, because you're constantly reassessing where you are. You're constantly reassessing. For me, it's a balance between reassessing the investment, the meaningful investment I'm putting into the family, against paying the bills, because the mountains adventure for me, a little bit like you, it pays the bills. So it's finding that balance between the two. And then there's a selfish aspect to it of, I feel that to be a better person, I need that sense of challenge. I need the sense of achievement. I need the space, which I get from the mountains, to readjust and to reset who I am. I go a bit stir crazy when I'm at home for too long. In lockdown was an interesting social experiment in the Cool household. So, I mean, thank God we live in the countryside. I can go out running, and we've got an outdoor gym, etc., etc. But I feel like I need the mountains. So it's finding that balance. But you're right. 1 minute you can be stood on the summit of Everest. It could be in Antarctica. It could be in Pakistan. And then with modern transportation, you can get from the top of Everest back home in 72 hours or less. And that readjustment takes a little bit of time. You probably know way more than me. You go from one environment to another environment very quickly, and that readjustment can be tricky, especially if the first environment held significant psychological or mental or physical hardship, and you drop back into home and the children are like, daddy's back, hugs, and you're trying to process with this still, and now you've got to deal with this at the same time and find the balance.
There's and there is the high aspect of, say for example something like Everest. You go away, you put so much effort and commitment into it. You sacrifice, most people 6 weeks, other people, like yourself, you do it in a lot shorter time. But there's that whole journey aspect of it. You reach the summit, you get on top of Everest or whatever climb it is. And there's that, that ecstasy moment of, we achieved what we wanted to achieve. And I always found when I came back from an expedition, it was, and I'm nowhere near as many as yourself, Kenton, but when you come back and you just slot back into that normal life, I always get a feeling of, you could almost call it depression, right?
No, absolutely.
It's just that.
Yeah, you end up walking up the aisle of Tesco's or whatever your local supermarket is, and the ego in you or in me is going, hey, I've just summited Everest or K2 or whatever it is. And everybody else is just walking past you as if it's an everyday Tuesday. And if you bump into a mate or something like that, it's like, hey, you coming down the pub on Thursday? Or, I haven't seen you at hockey for a little while. Or what have you been doing? There's not that connection which you have or I have that experience which we just had is almost meaningless to everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the amazing things with adventure. Adventure is what we want it to be, is what we make of it. It's very personable. You can stick your tent up in your back garden if you live in London, well, if you're lucky enough to have back garden in London, but on the roof of your block of flats or whatever. That can be equally as meaningful to the individual as climbing Everest. The guy in the supermarket that you meet still isn't going to be able to comprehend what it means to you, because adventure is so personable. And even when I was much younger, I lived in Sheffield, and there was one specific pub called I forget what it's called now. Anyway, it's one pub we always used to go to. All the climbers would go to this pub. It's on the corner. And anyway, everybody, and from time to time, people would be going away and doing these amazing expeditions, or some of the world's best rock climbers would come in from time to time, and you see this complete melting pot of talent who would go away and be doing these groundbreaking things. And you come back and it's like, "Hi, mate, what's going on? Want a pint?" And it's that. I mean, it's really weird. It's hard to process it. It's hard to put into words the complexities of coming back from somewhere or doing something significant, because it's only significant to us.
Yeah, and I kind of like it that way. I prefer it that way. I quite like that you have these people that are almost the unsung heroes that aren't chasing Instagram followers and likes and all that kind of things, but they're going away and they're doing what they're doing what their passion is, and in whether it's dangerous or whatever it means to them, and then they're coming back and they're just a normal person. Yeah, have you seen The Alpinist? Did you watch The Alpinist?
No, I haven't seen it yet. I know all about it. Obviously, I mean, Mark was a bit of a dark horse in our sport. I mean, if listeners, viewers haven't seen it, it's about an alpinist who was renowned for his free solos. So that's climbing without ropes, climbing on his own, but climbing in an environment which has a lot of uncontrollables. If you're climbing in winter on snow, on ice, and mixed ground, the amount of, say, uncontrollables, loose rock, ice which isn't properly formed or not bonded to the rock face, it's a step up from Alex Honnold with his Oscar-winning documentary Free Solo, which is incredible as well. I mean, that's not going to be repeated for probably in our generation, if ever. The Free Solo El Capitan, are you kidding me?
It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, but El Capitan is solid. It's not going to fall apart. It's not going to put on a loose rock. Mark was dry tooling, so that's just using ice axes. Yeah, I mean, as a climber, as a person that likes technicality of climbing, I dry tool, I ice climb, I mix climb. I can't get my head around that. And
it's bizarre, isn't it? It's
a dark horse that just went about because he needed that for himself and nobody else. He wasn't chasing sponsors. He wasn't chasing the gram. He did it because he was in love with it.
And that's the beauty of it, though, isn't it? It's, you almost want to dive into the psychology aspect of that more, but you can't, right? And you never will be able to.
Now, unfortunately. And the odd thing is, he died while climbing with a partner. Devil's Thumb, I think. If there's not some irony there, on one hand, free soloing on arguably the world's most dangerous environment, and then again, he was trying a very hard climb. Don't get me wrong, but I kind of feel that I should have done some push-ups or something before. I mean, I can just see the top of your arms. They're like sort of mini guns, aren't they?
I've got
my little weak arms look bits of string coming out from my t-shirt.
I've got one of those cameras.
A bit intimidated.
I've got a what do they call, filter? I'm gonna muscle filter.
A gun filter.
It's. Do you wish? Because you've been a massive adventurer. Do you wish more people would experience? And it doesn't necessarily mean climbing Everest 15 times or whatever, going to Antarctic. Do you wish more people could experience adventure?
Yeah, of course. We've already mentioned that adventure is a very personal thing. It could be Scotland, it could be the European Alps, it could be cycle touring around your local county, exploring footpaths. Yes, I think adventure is such a learning hub. It's such an environment for understanding who we are, understanding all those little things, all those buzzwords at the moment, resilience or resourcefulness or teamwork, leadership, and But more than anything else, I think adventure teaches us humility, and it teaches us about our environment. It was only today driving the children to school, and Saffron, my eldest, she's 11. And there's the back lane. We're very lucky. We live in the Cotswolds, in the countryside, and we drive in a back lane, single track back lane to school. And we did a litter pickup there 2 years ago, and it's filthy again. There's
crazy.
Costa Cup thingies. There's McDonald's stuff. It's all. And she said, "Daddy, why do people do that?" And it's a really good question. And a question I can't answer because I can't get into that mindset why you would just hoik your rubbish out of the window of the car. There's vodka bottles. Who drinks vodka in the car? Anyway, I think adventure, certainly adventure in the outside, of course, adventure could be indoors. There's all sorts of things. It teaches us about the environment. It teaches us what's actually important. And there's certain values which perhaps the next generation aren't getting from school. They're not getting from their peer group. They're perhaps not getting from their community. But adventure can teach us all of those things. You get out of your comfort zone. You experience new things. And what you bring back is a greater understanding of what's important. And right now, the biggest thing means on everybody's tongue after the debacle of COP26 is the environment and the climate and what we have around us. And I think if everybody had their own adventure, whatever it is, it could be anything, then I think we'd be in a better place. I really do. I think there'll be a commonality between everybody. And I know it's just a tiny thing, but I don't think we would see rubbish at the side of the road so much. I don't think we would see so many misunderstandings about, whatever. It just, it pains me so much. And I think adventure, or just getting outside, is that portal. I think it's a classroom which is underutilized.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think with, I've moved into a city at the minute, but I was living in the countryside previously to this, and just outside of where I lived, you'd walk exactly the same. You'd walk down the track. It's a road. It's used as a through road. It's not that busy, and left and right's exactly the same. But it's exactly the same rubbish that you see every time, right? It's cigarette packets. It's McDonald's. It's cans of Coke, cans of Pepsi, and you never see organic peanut butter jars. You never see a salad bowl that's been thrown out.
Or some expensive sourdough bread. I know exactly what you mean.
It's all the things that are bad for you, right? And it's that classic thing of people probably not looking after themselves physically or mentally, and that's it's like the classic saying of how we do anything is how we do everything. It's they don't look after themselves mentally or physically, and that results in them like not looking after the planet or the earth. And it's the same with respect, right? They don't properly respect themselves, and that means that they don't properly respect the planet. And it's quite sad to see. But no, I've got this thing that there's all the issues with mental health and all, that especially in males, around our age, with the suicide rates. I do feel like every time I go outside, and it might even be for a 30-minute walk or an hour walk around, the local countryside. It could be getting out into the countryside for prolonged walks. It could be anything, right? Just going for a swim in the ocean. Every time I do that, I feel better, like mentally, physically. And I sometimes feel that with the mental health crisis, if people just went outside and just went for a walk, even just went and picked all that rubbish up, just got some cold exposure, did very small micro adventures or very small things, that, you know, we probably wouldn't have this, you know, mental health pandemic that we do right now.
Yeah. Hey, I mean, everybody is different. I get that, but I think what you're saying has a huge dollar % to it. You know, I'm exactly the same. Now, I normally go for a daily run. I didn't run this morning, but I still got to walk the dog. So, you know, walking the dog around one of my run routes, and it's, you know, hand on heart. You know, I live in the Cotswolds. It's beautiful. I'm very lucky. I realise that. But I think if I was living in a city, and I have done time in cities, in Sheffield, in Leeds, in London, you know, I was always the same. I'd be out in the evening running the pavements, or if it, you know, I'd be up early in the morning, you know, walking to uni or walking to work or cycling to work. You know, I would do everything in my power to spend at least some time outdoors. And I think if we're confined to, you know, 4 walls, for what, you know, it is going to send us a little bit stir crazy. And, you know, if you're living in, you know, South London, you may not have access to, you know, the outside as I perhaps know it here in my, you know, middle class privileged, you know, situation. But we do have, generally in most cities, great parks. There are green spaces we can get to. But as I said, I used to pound the pavements. I used to go out running on the pavement, and that for me was enough. And it would be the reset. That every morning I drop the children off, and then I spend at least 45 minutes walking the dog, running the dog, whatever, and before I sit down at my desk. And that for me is a Kickstarter. I do that, then I have my caffeine, my coffee addiction, and then I crash into the day. You remove that, you know, and I start getting anxious, and that sounds crap, but I start getting anxious, and that's just from the coffee. Anything else? It's the power of being outside, the power of being connected to nature, and also connected to one another. And there's a fantastic book by I forget what his name is now. It's all about addiction. You know, the opposite of addiction is connection. You know, and it's talking about the importance that we do have social interaction, we do have social networks, we have social connectivity beyond, you know, this. That doesn't really count, and it's crucial. And, you know, within that, I would also put the outdoors. It's a total reset for me, without a doubt.
Yeah, same. I can't stay indoors for too long. I get really, like, I'm the same. Anxiety, or, you know, I'm the same. I get anxious if I stayed indoors. Like, I have to get up in the morning. I go for a walk, minimum for an hour. I have my coffee before. I can't wait. But
all good things come to those who wait. So that's what I tell myself. Okay, I'm going to wait. It also helps reduce my caffeine intake.
Yeah, true. How many are you on a day?
4.
You don't admit it to yourself.
Yeah, 4. I mean, I try to cut off at lunchtime.
See, mine have got stronger. I've just figured out how to get decent coffee and make it so that it's strong. So instead of a double espresso, now I'm pretty much filling half the cup with espresso and then just topping it up with hot water.
Yeah, it's hey, I mean, I think though, if you're gonna have a vice, there's a lot more out there. It's gonna be more harmful. But I mean, there's enough evidence to say that caffeine is pretty bad for us. I mean, it's a stimulant. We all know that. But
but there's a lot of good literature about coffee.
Yeah, no, there is. And you know, I tried it. I was reading a book about sleep, or listening to a podcast actually about sleep, and I didn't realize. Was that? Yeah, exactly.
Matthew Walker, brilliant, isn't it? Brilliant.
Yeah. And I was reading that about the heat dumping and you know, the cold room, which I already knew, but the half-life of coffee was an eye-opener, quite literally.
Yeah.
Ooh, okay. So I always used to have a coffee after dinner. You know, if I went out, I'm like, okay, let's cut that out. I mean, it was a 5-hour half-life.
Yeah.
Caffeine in the body.
Yeah.
That was like, yeah.
It's like 8 hours, isn't it?
I think you might be right. It was long enough for me to go, oh, bugger. So Yeah, I try to have my last coffee 12:30, and after that,
Yeah, I sometimes sneak a 3-4 p.m. in. Only if I'm struggling and maybe I've got a workout to do in the evening, I'll sneak a 3 to 4 p.m. in. But yeah, I do feel the difference when I come to go to bed.
It's interesting though, because I can't work out in the evenings. I've got to be in the mornings. Working out in the evenings doesn't really work for me.
Same, but I find I've got way more energy and way more productive in the mornings. So if I've got a lot of work on and I need to get stuff done, then the workout can sometimes fall behind, because I'll go out for the walk, come back, and then I know that if I sit behind the computer and do 2 hours, that's the same as doing probably 4 to 6 hours in the evening.
Yeah. We sound so alike. I mean, I have work I do in the mornings, and then I have work I do in the afternoons. And the work in the afternoon quite often is research, stuff that I go down the black hole, the wormhole, Google, trying to work out, okay, we've got this statistical thing, I need to research it. Rather than what I would call, class A productivity and the really important stuff. So I try to slew my work day a bit like that.
I'm very, very same. I'll do, because I don't generally watch TV unless there's something really interesting on. So in the evenings, I'm generally, I'm looking at stuff online. I'm doing the same, and it's light work that doesn't require much thought process. But
it's time intensive, or can be time intensive. You go down that wormhole, you read in articles, you click through. Do
you ever go down the YouTube wormhole? And
no,
next minute you're like trying to find, I don't know, new routes up K to whatever it is, and then next minute you're watching, I don't know,
someone base jumping off the old man of Hoy or whatever.
Or like I don't know, testing new drugs on caterpillars or something in Russia, and you're just like, what the hell have I just got myself into?
But it's interesting. I was looking at the algorithms. I was looking at the click-throughs on YouTube, or listen to a podcast. I listen to a lot of podcasts, and the way that you are deliberately taking down certain channels by YouTube and the algorithms and things like that, and you do pop up with some Russian caterpillar eating radioactive material from Chernobyl, or whatever it may be. It is set that way.
It's scary. Did you see the Social Dilemma?
No, not seen that. No,
that's worth. I mean, it's worth watching, but it also kind of sends you into this internal, this nihilistic, like the world's going to end, internal doom kind of mindset. So just watch it with an open mind, I'd say.
Yeah, but then, I mean, if you look through history, that sort of thing keeps coming up. I mean, doomsday, and when people used to see comets or eclipses, various societies back in the day would have their own sort of the end of the world is nigh sort of mentality. Which
look at the millennium.
Well, there we go. The infamous clock that every like, electronic computer was going to malfunction. That turned out to be true. God, I forgot all about that. A bit like COVID. Some people made a heap of cash out of that.
Yeah, I know, right? I know. I can't help but think that every time I travel and I've got to buy £200 worth of testing, that
I spent thousands on testing. I mean, I get it. I totally get it, but I spent thousands on testing. And especially when you go, we would spend. In the first instance, it was like £200 here for a PCR test, and I was lucky enough to travel to Nepal this time last year. You get exactly the same test, or essentially the same test, for $20, and they come to your hotel to test you.
Yeah,
you're like, right, just explain to me how that works. It's curious.
I did the same in Bali, and then coming back into the country, and you pay for that 5-day test, the test to release. But you don't get your test results back till day 9 or day 8, which is like, so it's a complete farce, right?
Yeah, I mean, clearly that we have a duty of care to the community, and I totally get it.
Yeah,
and I'm all over that. At the same time,
Anyway, we're going to the Russian caterpillars.
You even get your many millions of fans going, Jay, you bastard! You can't talk about this. But
let's talk. Let's bring it back to the mountains, Kenton. So obviously you are known for being, so you've climbed Everest more than, so 15 times, is it now?
15 times. So that equals with Dave Hart. Records in the mountains, I think, are fairly meaningless. That's not what we do it for.
Mm-hmm.
However, if you were going to keep count, 15 summits of Everest puts me level with Dave Hart, the lovely American dude, as the non-Sherpa record for most number of summits. But then let's keep things into perspective, shall we? Kami Rita's on 24. I think Appa and I forget what his name is now. It lives above Namche.
Is that the Sherpa?
Yeah, not a Sherpa. They're on 22. Yeah. And there's a raft of Sherpas on 17, 18, 19, 20. I work with a guy called Padawa. I can't even remember how many summits he's got. He says I'm on around 20. Yeah, I mean, I think shuffling up and down the same mountain 15 times, is it that impressive? No, it's a good investment of time, maybe. Well, no, it's a poor investment of time. But it's a mountain that I love. You've been there. You know what it's like. Can't help but go there and get caught in the... I mean, it's changing a lot these days, but certainly in the earlier days, to work with the Sherpa crews, to work on that mountain, to call that mountain essentially my office. You know, I do still love it, despite the changing environment that we see there.
It's the same for me, and it's, you know, I get asked quite a lot about Everest and, you know, how I feel about people that may not be fit enough or qualified enough to be on that mountain. And, you know, I keep coming back to the same conclusion that no one really essentially owns that mountain, right? It's part of the earth, and anyone on the earth deserves the right to be on that mountain if they've paid the money, if they've got a legitimate Sherpa, if they think that they're worthy of being on that mountain, then, you know, they have all the right in the world to be on that mountain. You know, bringing other people into that and bringing other people into danger is a completely different topic. But I you know, I think that Everest is still Everest. It is still the highest mountain in the world. It is still a beautiful mountain. It's, you know, it's one of the greatest experiences I've ever done. It's still one of the hardest things I've ever done too. And I think people think
that's interesting that you say that.
Yeah, I think, you know, it's, you know, people think that it's easy because all you've got to have is 50k in the bank to be able to climb Everest. And it's like, if you think that that's all you need, then you're completely misguided. It takes a lot of fucking effort to get up that mountain.
It's really interesting that what you say pretty much mirrors what I've been saying for years. And one of the great things about mountaineering as a sport, there's no real rules or regulations. You know, if you want to go to Mont Blanc, Everest, you know, whatever, you know, Grand Duras in France, and throw yourself against the mountain or against the routes, that's entirely up to you. There's no committee to say otherwise. You don't need to be nominated or seconded to get into the club. It's not like the local golf club or tennis club. You know, mountaineering has always been somewhat anarchistic, and long may it continue. At the same time, I think, as you rightly pointed out, people need to have an understanding that if they go to Everest, they shouldn't suck in predominantly our Sherpa friends to get them out the situation that they find themselves in. You know, they're putting other people in danger. They're sometimes putting other people in danger, or often upsetting other people's own dreams and ambitions. You're never going to walk past somebody that needs help. And as a professional mountain guide that I am, it's a real conundrum. I work in a very bespoke way. I work just with one client each year. And if I'm with that client, I come across somebody that's ill-prepared or has cut corners or perhaps doesn't have the experience to be there and is struggling, as a professional mountain guide, I have a duty of care. But my duty of care is to who? My client as a paying client, or to the other person as a human being? Well, it's to both. So what do I do? Now, I'm normally lucky. I've got quite a big Sherpa team around me at all times. And generally, one of those can peel off and try to deal with the situation. Or I might have to peel off if it's beyond the remit or scope that Sherpa can deal with. But then what happens to my clients? Do we turn around? I mean, it's a real conundrum. And that's that is a real issue. Of course, preservation of life is always going to be number one, without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, I've had stand-up screaming matches on the Loti face with, in one instance, there was an Indian girl that came back 2 years running, actually. She was woefully underprepared. I don't know what team she was with. And I found myself screaming at her. How dare she draw her Sherpas? And the Sherpas are trying to put her crampons on. One of them's fallen on. She can't put it on. She's dropped a mitt. And this is at the bottom of the Loti face on a fine day. And I'm screaming at her and screaming at the Sherpas to turn around. Because the Sherpas are never going to say no, because they're that sort of race of people. I mean, they're so lovely, so kind-hearted, so generous. And it gets them into trouble sometimes. It's just like, oh. At the same time, it's the commercial environment which has funded most of my professional life. It's a real double-edged sword. I'm right in the middle of that commercialism. I like to think that I approach it in a very different way. I try to stay away from the circus as much as I can, but I'm very aware that it's there.
I'm very, when I see, so you were definitely on Everest 2019. Yeah. Were you on 2000? You would have been 2017, right?
Yeah, 17, 18, 19.
Yeah, I was completely aware of your movements on 19, not so much on 17, but I was watching in envy.
19 was Michael Lavelle. We got up and out.
It was 3 weeks, was it?
Yeah, 2 days after the fixing team. I think we started 3 days after the fixing team. But that's a small team. From your own military experience. A small team of A-class players are going to be far more effective than a bigger team. Even if that bigger team's got some really good players there, to a certain extent, they're going to have to work to the lower denominator. You go in there with a small team, a really good, strong Sherpa team, a client that's been prepped for the last 2-3 years, which I always do. You have this ability. Your logistics are relatively small. You can get them in place quickly, and I really do. I'm on the coattails of the fixing team every single time. Get in there, get up, get out. And then normally about 4, 5, 6 days, a week later, you get the circus storm that comes in of all the bigger teams, larger numbers. That's more often than not where you find the lower denominator, i.e., sweeping generalization. I'm going to say sorry to my Chinese and Indian friends, but they are often Chinese and Indian clients. They come in. They look to summit at the same time as everybody else because they feel that there is a modicum of safety in that. And somebody else is making a decision in another team, and they say, well, that's got to be right, so let's go. And that's where the shitstorm happens. Fingers crossed, by that time, I'm back in Kathmandu or even back in the UK sometimes.
So I got stuck in the shitstorm in 2019, and luckily it wasn't. So we ended up on day 2 of the shitstorm. Day 1 was the really bad day.
What day was that? Was that the 20?
I want to say 25th, maybe.
Yeah. Somebody did 16.
Yeah, there was. Yeah. So we actually tried to summit on the same push as you, but I actually got ill at Camp 3.
You were out there with the HTS,
Yeah, HST. Yeah, Krish's team.
Yeah.
But yeah, I actually got ill at Camp 3. I had the shits, the runs, so I turned the team back, and we went back down to base camp. And I'm pretty sure that because there was an early summit window, right? Yeah. And we tried to push for that. I think we had the American girl that was she was an amputee. She had one leg. Pretty sure she had one leg.
Oh yeah, she was with Rob Gowler.
Yes, that's it. Yeah, American Rob. Yeah.
Gowler. He's a dude.
Yeah, he is a dude.
Yeah, I met him for the first time about, I don't know, 2001.
Yeah,
maybe 2000 in America, in the Needles, like his rock climbing place. And our paths keep crossing from time to time.
He's a good dude, isn't he?
Yeah, he's solid. Very good skier. And very good at hacky sack as well.
Is he? He was funny. I can't remember what he kept saying. There's a few things. Typical American.
Yeah, he's very American, isn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm very fond of America. I'm very fond of Americans. Well, generally speaking. But Gowler's up there. I like Gowler a lot. And the girl that actually came across, she was on Carstan's Pyramid when I was at Bukajara.
Christy? I think she's called Christy.
Yeah. And then I saw her again on Denali in 2000 and whenever it was, maybe 18 it was. I think 18 went to Denali with Rob. Yeah,
strong. Yeah, strong.
She didn't summit though, did she?
No, I think she got maybe 300 meters from the summit.
Yeah.
So maybe before Hillary Steph, that kind of area. I can't, we went up on the hill at the same time, so I have no heart to say that I know exactly what happened.
I think there's a bit within the team.
Yeah, but a Sherpa team kind of. From what we heard, the rope. There was heavy snowfall the day before. I'm freestyling now. I'm just trying to think if I can remember. There was heavy snowfall, which meant all the fixed lines had been buried. I think the Sherpa. I don't know. I'm sure.
Yeah,
it was one of those, right? That the girl and Robin that was saying one thing, the Sherpas are saying the other thing, and it's.
I mean, it comes to that classic thing. Whenever you put in a team together, it's got to be open dialogue. Because more often than not, when things like that, and she is an amazing lady, and some of the stuff she does is, her endurance levels are beyond comprehension. But my understanding, I spoke only briefly to Rob about this, very long summit day, and I don't think the Sherpas fully understood what they were embarking on.
Yeah, it sounds that rings a bell.
And I totally get their position. They're putting their lives on the line.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine was, I think it was the same year, 2019. I think it was 2019. Was working on Nat Geo project, and they were trying to put a weather station.
We saw them.
The North Face team.
I got chatting to quite a few of them.
So Mark Fisher from Fisher Creative. I know Mark super well. Mark and Ed. Anyway, they're trying to put this huge weather station on. I think they were meant to be humping it to the summit. I
think they stuck it at the balcony.
Yeah, they put it at the balcony in the end. Yeah, absolutely. And the Sherpas in the end said, no, we've had enough of this.
Really?
Yeah, we're pumping these big loads with part of that weather station. I forget what the weight was. It was like 15 kilos. I mean, it wasn't a lightweight thing. And all of a sudden, the Sherpas are like, no, we've had enough. This is, and they had to turn around. And I chatted at length to Mark about that, and it's sometimes our expectation of the Sherpas. We have to remember they are human beings. They have the same fragilities that you and I do. They bleed just like you and I. They get exhausted just like you and I, albeit. They are animals of the mountains, and I mean that in a really nice way. They're powerhouses, but they still have the human trait. They're human beings.
It's crazy, isn't it? Some of the, I've been quite lucky in terms of working with Ming David. I don't know if you know him.
Yeah.
But he's an absolute I remember the first time, so 2017 on Everest, and we came down from Camp 4 to Camp 3, and he packed up the tents, ended up bringing all the empty oxygen bottles, like everything that was left over.
60, 70 kilos.
Yeah, and he must be about 5'6".
Yeah.
He's a small guy.
Like a little finger.
Yeah, small guy, very small guy. But his rucksack was, I'm talking, his rucksack was at least a foot each side of his shoulders. It was probably mid hamstring, like midway down his legs. It was coming out here with everything that he'd stacked under it. It was probably, if I was to take a guess, 40 kilograms.
Yeah, but quite possibly more. It's coming down. Those boys stack it, because what they don't want to do is do another
go back. Yeah.
They want to clear the camp out.
Phenomenal.
Yeah,
and he summited. He
Yeah.
summited, and he was at the summit, and I'm looking at his oxygen. He's got on like 0.5, and the thing's not even on properly. It's just like sat here.
Yeah, the machine. But even the very best machine has a limit somewhere.
Yeah.
And
there's some that aren't machines as well.
Yeah, and there's a vast. Just about like that. Say there's a vast gulf between the world class.
Yeah.
And the not so well, and even the not so world class will run rings around me with their load carrying capacity. But they're human beings, and I think one of the things that saddens me about Everest is there is this total expectation from some people that the Sherpas are merely bag carriers to somebody else's lofty ambition to conquer the mountain, and that really saddens me because it is you're entering into a partnership, and yes, the Sherpa will go above and beyond for you. They will do extreme feats of human endurance. They would lay their lives on the line for you. But occasionally, very occasionally, because they come from a yes culture, they would draw the line in the sand and say, "That's it. I've had enough."
Yeah.
And when
they're legends.
When they do that, I'm like, wow, if they said that, then they really mean it. And you can but honor that. They're beyond legends. I fail to find the words for them.
They're good people.
You're smiling now, and just reminded they do it with a smile. They got, David would have like 40, 50, 60 kilos on his back, collapse at Camp 2, give him a mug of tea, and he's got this broad grin on his face. It's like, Jay, bye, blah, and they do it all again the next day. That's the incredible thing.
Yeah, I know. And even when you're resting at base camp, they're taking all the oxygen up, taking all the tents up, going up to Camp 4 without oxygen, ditching all the kit, coming back down, going back up again.
Yeah, I mean, to give the listeners, viewers an understanding, so that they will carry, or the Sherpas will carry, when they do an oxygen carry to the coal, they'll go from Camp 2, which is 6,400 meters, to the South Col, 8,000 meters. So that's 1,600 meters of vertical ascent. They're beginning to use oxygen now. Some of the bigger teams are beginning to supply oxygen for the carries, but more often than not, they do it without oxygen. And they will carry anywhere between 4 and maybe 7 cylinders. And a cylinder will weigh 4.4 kilos. And they will get up at, 2 o'clock in the morning from Camp 2. And you might be sat at home thinking, 1,600 meters, I can do that on a Stairmaster. Yeah, but now do it with 20 kilos on your back. Now do it at 8,000. Now do it at 8,000
with a straw in your mouth.
Yeah. And they might do that 2 days running.
Yeah.
It is, if the weather systems are such that they've only got a small weather window, and they'll get back, some of them will get back down in the dark. And they might only have half a litre of water all day long. It is, that is just crazy human endurance feats.
And even to the point that, I was just thinking then they obviously have the dal bat for breakfast and dinner, but you rarely see them pull out a snack, right? No. I take so many bars and gels and electrolytes and
when you try to share it, they're like, no, it's okay. I'll bar later.
yeah. All about power.
Yeah, 24 hours power. Incredible guys, and so humble, amazing integrity. There's a lot of us travel to Nepal to climb mountains and to go trekking, and we can learn a lot from the mountains, but I think we can also learn a lot from the local people. No matter where that is. It could be Bhutan, it could be, obviously I'm in love with the mountains, Pakistan, India.
Were you there when the earthquake hit?
No, I transited through a few days before. I didn't work the mountain 2014-15. I was working on a project in Bhutan, which ultimately collapsed. But we were trying to put together a business in Bhutan, and I just finished up in Bhutan, flew through Kathmandu, I'd say maybe 3 days before. Stopped up in Kathmandu for 24 hours, caught up with some friends, did a bit of business, and then flew home. I just remember it vividly. It's an Indian friend of mine. She rung me up, said, "Oh, Kenton, hope all your friends are okay." What do you mean? He said, "Oh, check the news. And like, oh, shit. And then reports started coming in from base camp. Yeah, base camp's been destroyed. There's been an avalanche. And I remember my first, so yeah, listeners don't know, 25th of April, 2015, 7.8 on the Richter scale, I think it was. And the Richter scale is logarithmic, so 7.8 is colossal. I think it's over 10,000 people lost their lives in Nepal. 18 people lost their lives at base camp. And when somebody said, "Oh, base camp's been destroyed by an avalanche," well, no, that's impossible. And then you saw film footage.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Got to be kidding me!
Yeah,
just unreal.
Yeah.
Absolutely unreal.
I flew in just after it, probably about 2 weeks after it had hit. And we went up to, we went up to Mustang on a small trip.
Mustang. Is it as beautiful as what it says it is?
Yeah, stunning, really nice, like super clean, just a nice, clean place. Everyone's really respectful. There was a Nepalese army camp that ran mountain training up there. So we went up, spent a couple of nights with them, came back down, and then walked the back end of the Trongla Pass. Is it Trongla Pass? The big pass? Trongla Pass.
Is that into the Manaslu area?
I'm not actually sure, but we ended up walking the back end of it. So it's a classic gradual incline up to about 5,000 meters, and it just drops down from 5,000 to probably about 1,000 meters in a day. But we walked the back end of it, so we went from 1,000 up to 5,000, had a cup of tea, and then came back down. Trongla Pass.
Yeah, remind me not to go for a walk with you.
But we actually went there probably about 6 months later. We went to a place called Langtang.
Yeah. That Langtang got properly hit. A landslide came down and pretty much destroyed every house in the village.
Literally covered everything, and you could. So where the track goes up through to Upper Langtang, you go through the main town that just got completely covered in rock, and they've almost carved like a little footpath out of it. Some boulders down there that are the size of a small house. But what was super interesting was that going up the valley, and you've got Langtang on your left as you go up. On the right, where all the trees were, so obviously the earthquake happened, started a landslide, which all the rubble and rocks came down, but the winds afterwards pushed to the other side of the valley and completely destroyed all the trees for about 500 meters all the way down the valley.
Jesus.
Just flattened all these trees.
The power of nature it's sobering, humbling. Yeah, it's just when nature shakes its shoulders, we all know about it. Yeah.
The mountains are a big one for that, right? How was K2? You were there this year.
Oh, it was awesome. I first went to Pakistan as a young 19-year-old. 28 years ago, I think I worked out. Which made me feel a little bit old. If any viewers, listeners are trying to do the maths, I'm 48. Pakistan was my first experience of the Greater Ranges. And then I went back there a few years later. I was meant to go back there again in 96, but then I had quite a bad accident, so I couldn't get there. I was meant to be trying the Ogre, which is on the Chokchoi Glacier. And ever since I was a young boy, I always wanted to go to Vascoli, which is the roadhead for K2. And I wanted to go at the Buttora. To get the opportunity to go this year was remarkable. And it was everything I hoped for. This start. Have you been to Pakistan?
Never, no.
Have you been in Afghanistan? You've been in Afghanistan?
Yeah.
So it's the same sort of, I don't quite know where you were in Afghanistan, but it's got the same sort of stark, brutal beauty to it. And it's like, I don't do very well in the heat. I mean, it's like eye-wateringly hot. It's dry, it's arid. You got to trek. I mean, there's no tea houses on the trek. You got to trek for bloody miles. You have to stop for like a tea house lunch, like you might do in Nepal. I loved it. Everybody said to me, the trek's brutal. You're going to hate it. And partly because I've got smashed legs. I loved it. It was hard work, but I loved it. I loved the changing scene. I love the people. I mean, the people are so generous and welcoming. It's such a new country. It only came into existence in 47 with the partition of India. And they're so proud of their country. They just want to simply show it off.
Mm-hmm.
And what a country it is. I mean, it's hard. And that's just getting to base camp. Then you've got to climb the bloody mountain. And now, I was there with a client. I'd always said I would never guide K2 because I thought there was too many uncontrollables.
Yeah, you've been on K2 before, though, Kenton. Right?
No. I signed up to go there years ago with Russell Bryce back in 2012, 13, something.
Yeah.
And there's just that gut feel about 2 weeks before I went. I said, no. And I just walked away from quite a lot of cash I put down for the trip, like that. And of course, this year, because of COVID, there weren't that many people there.
Mm-hmm.
So put it in perspective, 2019, which is the last time somebody climbed K2, there was about 250 people trying to climb the mountain. And that includes high altitude staff. So that's Sherpas, the local patrol, Balti high altitude porters, and clients. Compared with what can be close to 1,000 on Everest, just to put it in perspective for people listening to this. On K2 this year, we had 70.
Wow.
70 people and high altitude staff.
Yeah.
They're beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And probably those that were actually active on the mountains, probably only 50, because another 20 were on board peak first. And they never came across the climb.
Wow.
K2. So to get K2 like that, the weather was perfect, Jay. The underfoot conditions were perfect. The whole thing just developed in the most convivial way. I joked, I did a little stage tour recently, and I joked that we went there expecting to have to slay dragons, and instead we found sheep. It was this monstrous beast just on her back, having her tummy tickled until the very last day. And as we were coming down from Camp 3, all of a sudden she just showed her ferocity. Stone fall, avalanches, wet slides. It was ugly, scary and ugly. But we happily summited. We got back down. We had a fantastic time. But at the same time, I'm telling myself, you've guided it, you've done it. Don't forget that last day. Don't get seduced by all the great stuff and forget about that one ugly day. It only takes one stone to end it all. And for all the fantastic things about K2, it's a challenging route, it's steep, it's uncompromising, it's interesting. It doesn't let you unlock her little secrets that easily. There was a great collaboration at base camp between the few teams that were there. It was just everything that you want in a mountain. And it scared me just enough for me not to be rushing back anytime soon. I'll be back to Pakistan, don't get me wrong. Maybe try a different route on K2. Maybe try something else, something which is, because the amount of people that will be on that mountain next year will just elevate the risk. There will be no tent space. People will be kicking rocks up. It's impossible not to kick rocks off on that mountain. There were rocks crashing through our tent, luckily when we weren't there. But rockfall is a big danger on that hill. And if you have 200 plus people, it becomes that much scarier.
Is that because of the steepness of it? It's just at a good trajectory.
Steepness and also the rock. The rock quality is not great. You climb up through the Black Pyramid, and it's relatively steep rock. I don't quite know what the rock type is, but it's been heavily metamorphosed. It's like shade. It's a little bit like the Matterhorn. It's like sort of stacked. I don't know if you climb the Matterhorn, but it's kind of like shaly stacked, almost like a gneiss.
I've seen it. Big gaps in it and kind of loose sections. And
you get rocks stuck between your crampon spikes. It's impossible not to kick stuff off. So it needs to be frozen. But then you've got to be careful of the sun coming up, because the Abruzzi Ridge does catch a lot of sun. So you get the freeze-thaw cycles, and rocks can just release on their own. Even pulling a rope sometimes, as you know, a rope can just flick rocks. It was beautiful, though. I loved it. I loved it. It was everything I'd hoped for. It really was.
Yeah, K2's on a. Yeah, I think the last 2 years I've been so itching to go and do K2, and this last year, I don't know why, but I just kind of asked myself in my head, like why, like what are the reasons that you want to go there for? And I was like, I don't know, because I just wanted to. I'd done Everest twice, and I was just, done some other. I've been on Manaslu twice. I've done some other smaller peaks around it. Yeah, I was on some smaller peaks around the Himalayas, and I was just like, I just want to go. I don't know. It's hard to actually put a button on an excuse of why you want to go. It just felt like the right thing to do up until, I don't know, this year. I'm like, do I really want to go? Like, do I want to take the risk of
well, I mean, I
being
don't
on it?
I don't want to be the harbour of bad news, but I think this was the year to go.
Yeah, just because of the amount of people that were on the mountain. Because that mountain's only going to get busier, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, we're going to see a migration of a certain set of people from Everest, I think, thinking about what next and go to K2. The Sherpa success in winter is only going to elevate its standing. The success in 2019, there's quite a lot of success in 2019. Big success this year. Over 50 people stood on the summit this year. That sends out a certain message, and not everybody realizes the hard work, the danger, the logistics it takes to put that in place. I can't wait to go back to Pakistan. I won't be rushing back to I won't be rushing back to the Abruzzi, put it that way. I'm loosely thinking about Nanga Parbat for next year. Beautiful looking mountain. Love to go there. Standing on the shoulder of K2, looking out across the Karakoram range, it's so pointy. There are so many layers of beautiful mountains, many of which nobody has ever climbed, many of which are below 8,000 meters, below 7,000 meters. I'd love to be in a situation where I could legitimately close the front door from the family and go there knowing I was going there for the right reasons. But more often than not, it's work for me. I need to justify it. When I close the front door, how is what I'm about to do going to help the greater thing that is Team Cool? 2 children, myself, the wife, the dog. And it's got to be justifiable. And I really hope that one day, very soon, I get in that situation and I can go to Pakistan for me to explore, to see what's around the corner, to go to the Ogre, the mountain I never got to go up the Chok Choi. It's just, there's mountains, mountain ranges, and then there's a Karakoram. And its stark beauty is seducing and mesmerizing. God, it's beautiful. It's unreal.
Yeah, but I can only imagine. Imagine.
It's bloody marvelous. It's hard work.
Yeah.
Because the logistics aren't so tight as Nepal. In Nepal, you're probably in the same situation. You can make a telephone call.
Yeah.
And you can get logistics wherever it's sorted.
Yeah.
Even when you're in country, you're having to pivot and fight and go this way and that way, and you're bartering and you're bribing, and I love all that stuff. Yeah, I love it all. And then the kit doesn't turn up, or the bloody donkeys have stopped 2 hours down there for whatever reason. And you're like, guys, I've got no tent. And, it's just like, what are we going to do? And I love that aspect of it. I love the adventure it gives you.
And that's what it would have been, right? That's what it would have started off as. That is like an expedition by the meaning of expedition. It's just become commercialized now and just easily accessible for everyone else.
Yeah, but Pakistan is still loose.
Still there.
Yeah. Okay. The Karakoram, the Botora, K2, G1, G2, the big peaks. The local outfits are getting their stuff together on that. But you go out of the way. I mean, my first trip was to the Noltar Valley, north of Gilgit. We had no cook. We had like 5 packets of biscuits for 5 weeks. That was the luxury food. No, I was 19. We made all. We went to the market ourselves and bought all the food. How much carbohydrate do we need per day? Oh, I don't know, 100 grams of this. And how much?
Did you get it right? Did you get it right?
Yeah. The first 2 days picking all the rat poo poo out the rice when we bought the cheap rice. It was like, this rice is like 100 rupees.
Oh, no.
This rice is 150 rupees. This rice is 200 rupees. Well, it all looks the same. Let's just get the cheap rice.
Yeah.
And that's where the experience comes from. That's where the teeth are cut. That's when the shit hits the fan, that's what you lean back on.
Mm-hmm.
You lean back on those moments where, as you're probably very aware of him, David Goggins. That's what David Goggins would say. That's a deposit into the cookie jar. And then when you need it, you can put your hand in and you can pick it out. I love Pakistan.
Yeah, 100%. I used to love that aspect of being in the military. And it's, I don't know, like as contentious as it is, like there's something like not beautiful, but there's something peaceful about war. And it comes back to, I guess, the internal adventure in most people that went and joined the army. And it's you talking that about Pakistan just reminds me of being, I can't talk about much, but being in certain countries just on your own or with a small team and just having to buy food for yourself. And it's I don't know, I live for those moments, but they're getting few and far between. I don't know, the older you get, or the more, I don't know.
Well, I think the older we get, the more we slip into a more comfortable way of life. Certainly for me, I hold my hand up and do that. And the other thing which makes a huge difference,
I do, but I try not to admit it to myself, Kent. I find it hard to go, Jay, you were in the special forces, you're not anymore.
Well, that and things change, priorities change, and I was doing, because I got my own podcast. I was interviewing Simon Yates and Joe Simpson. So the guy touching it. So I was interviewing Joe. This is only last year, and he said that he went to the mountains thinking that he wanted to be like Messner. He wanted to be like Walter Banati. He wanted to be this amazing superstar climber. But actually, when he started doing it, and the fear and being scared and the technicalities of the climb, the exhaustion, the lack of sleep, not eating properly. After 2 or 3 trips like that, he held his hand up and go, actually, I thought that's what I wanted, but it's not. And over time, I've come to that same conclusion. When I was younger, I used to do all that sort of stuff. We were 10 days on Annapurna 3 back in 2003. Pushed us mentally, physically. We ran out of gas, ran out of food. Thought John was going to die. All that sort of stuff. I continued doing it for a few years after that, and it grinds you down. And I think there's only a very few people out there that have that mental fortitude that they can keep doing it. And I'm not one of them. I did it for a bit. And then when I was brutally honest with myself, I thought, I don't want to do it anymore.
It's type 2 fun, isn't it?
It's not even type 2 fun. It's like, it's so way down the line.
Yeah.
It's like you're in tears. It pushes you beyond, and you know this more than any of us. It pushes you beyond anything you think you are capable of. And then you have to try to reintegrate. Now, Annapurna 3 broke relationships. It broke people. It was sublime, and it's molded me to who I am today in many ways. And it was so good to see. Only last week it received like an ascent. It's the first time it's been ascended since we climbed it back in 2003, albeit by even harder route than we climbed. And it brought back all the memories. Sitting on in a boulder field in the dark with a haul bag, we call haul bags pigs, that weighs like 50 kilos. Seeing Johnny Varco just get up and walk away without saying a word. Having, I just fallen down his slope, and the connection between us just being broken. Very proud of what we did. But I So I, for one, don't have that mental fortitude. I can't do that year after year after year after year. I thought I wanted to do that, but I can't. And we grow up. Things change. Priorities change. Children come along. Marriage comes along. Better halves. Boyfriends, girlfriends, whatever it is. And those of us who are perhaps in denial will shun that and try to keep going down the line that we have always done. And those of us who are perhaps a little bit braver will put our hands on our hearts and say, that's not us anymore. We've moved on. We've changed. And we have dependencies elsewhere now. And that took me a long time to come to terms with. And to a certain extent, I'm still grappling with it. You and your cohort from your army days, probably by a magnitude of 100. Trying to compartmentalize everything and where you are now to where you were and where you're going to be. And invariably, we're doing it on our own.
Yeah, I think definitely for me, I don't have as much interest in being sleep deprived as much as I used to when I was younger. That's definitely
you actually had an interest in it.
I mean, you could do a day and not feel it, but now I do. I get 7 hours instead of 8, and I'm a grumpy person.
Yeah,
but I don't know. For me, I think you get wise to it, and I think you finally realize that you can go away and do something for a day and just get the same enjoyment that you would have back then for a 6-week or a 4-week expedition. And I know now that I have certain things that I do, whether it's activities or sports or whatever, that are going to give me just as much enjoyment and less pain, suffering, more sleep, better health, all that kind of stuff, than if I was to go away and do some, whether it was something in the military or whatever that I used to enjoy doing.
But I say, I mean, we could joke about type 2 fun. Did we actually enjoy it in the moment? I suppose.
No,
I don't know.
You always there's probably part of you. I don't know. You never remember how much you moaned, because you do. I don't know. Military, like especially in the special forces, lads are proper moaners, because I don't know, a lot of prima donnas and people that think we should be treated better, and next minute you're, I don't know, in the middle of Oman with eating rations for the 6-week run-in, and not had a shower.
And I'm guessing your rations, they don't take a long time to cook. I mean, one of the lovely things on expeditions, if you're not on the hill, the meal time is coming together. You're cooking the meals, you've got to prepare the meals, but certainly when I've been in Greenland and things like that, we did 4 weeks in Greenland, just all in the bags. From the moment of, let's have supper, to, we've eaten supper, 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, what do we do for the next 23 hours until we do that again? It's amazing the joy of food preparation, not just the physical act. And I guess you spend 6 weeks in Martin in the sand. And I hate sand, by the way. It's my nemesis.
Yeah.
Don't like sand at all. Not me.
What's next, Kenton?
Well, hopefully Antarctica, but we'll wait and see.
Yeah.
Maybe going down to Antarctica, back to Everest next year. Ding, ding, round 16.
Yeah.
Got a beautiful client, an English girl living out in Long Beach. Not much mountain experience, and COVID's been a real hiccup on that, to try to get her up to speed and experience. But, she's a grafter. She's a fast learner, super inquisitive. Want to go back to Pakistan badly, and then launching a new company. We're launching a company called Cool Company, ICC, and it's going to be a blend of some leadership and coaching, getting people out of their comfort zones in the mountains. My wife's an exec coach. There's quite a lot of mentorship. Quite high end clientele. So we're busy launching that.
In the mountain, sorry, Kenton. Is that in the mountain-based training? Is it?
Yeah, it will be a little bit. So it's going to be sort of multi-level, individuals, organisations, but you've got to be realistic that not everybody can put a week aside and go to a retreat in the Dolomites, say, to get outside of comfort zone, to pick apart what they're doing, to look at their mental, physical, nutritional well-being. So that's all packaged together. And then on the personal side of things, I'm working on a couple of projects in Pakistan that I want to get up and running. I've fallen back in love with Pakistan, as you may have guessed. I'm working with one or two companies out there in the ministry to try to boost tourism. And then, just trying to be a great husband, an even better father, and look after myself. I'm 48. The knees are beginning to creak. The hips are beginning to ache when I get out of bed in the morning. And, you've got to invest time into that. It's not a spring chicken anymore. And I want to keep doing what I'm doing. So got to look after the engine a little bit. So
it's been, thanks again for coming on. And it's been great to chat and to meet you as well. Hopefully we can catch up soon on a mountain or for a beer or wherever.
Well, a beer on the mountain. There we go. It ticks all the boxes.
For sure. Or a boil in the bag.
Yeah, well, let's try and miss one in the back. But I know we've got a lot of mutual friends. It'd be good to get some of those cats together and actually meet you in person for once. I think I've passed through this from time to time. We've got mutual friends. So I appreciate your time, your energy, and what you do. Keep doing it. Keep it real. And we'll see you on the hillside soon.
Yeah, likewise, Kenton. Appreciate you, and stay safe and enjoy the Antarctic.
Well, that brings us to the end of my first ever podcast series. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Hope you found it useful, insightful, and inspiring. Finally, let's give a massive thank you to our sponsors, Harley-Davidson, for making this possible. I'll be embarking on a new journey with them very soon on their new Pan America adventure motorcycle. So please give them a follow on Twitter at Harley_UKI or Instagram at Harley-Davidson_UK to share their experience.